So today we're going to take a look at, let me close this here, see if we can get to what we're going to look at. We are going to take a look at law of sines. So let's make this a little larger. So we're going to take a look at some non-right triangles because we can't use SOHCAHTOA on non-right triangles. So if we take a look at this, let's see. Let's say let's find h here, our height. We're going to set that up. So let's say I say the sine of b. And if I take the sine of b, because this height makes a right triangle into two right triangles, we have h over a. But if I took the sine of a, I would have opposite over hypotenuse, h over b. And then let's say I solve for the height, so times a, so I have a times the sine of b equals h, and then over here I have b times the sine of a equals h. So I have two expressions in terms of height, so I can set those equal to each other. So a times the sine of b equals b times the sine of a. And now what I can do is I can say, okay, I'm going to divide this side by the sine of b. So divide this side by the sine of b. Well, if I divide this side by the sine of a, this side by the sine of a, I end up with a over the sine of a equals b over the sine of b. And this is what's known as the law of sines. So, our law of sines, you'll see it two different ways. You'll see it a over the sine of a, and again these could be c's as well, b over the sine of b, or sometimes you see it with the angles on top. The sine of a over little a equals the sine of b over little b. And in order to use the side, you need to know an angle and the side opposite. So, we're going to take a look at this first one here. This first one is solve the triangle, and solve means find all sides and angles. So if we have triangle ABC, and again, capital letters are our angles, small letters are our sides, so B lowercase. So angle B is 105, so 105 is in here. Angle A is 33, and B is 37.5. So we have to find angle A to solve it. We have everything. Angle A, angle B, angle C, little a, little b, and little c. So we have a couple of these already. We know A is 33, B is 105, and little b is 37.5. Well, we know there's 180 in a triangle, so we can just go to our calculator here and say 180 minus 105 minus 33. And we have our last angle is 42 right here. So we know that's 42 degrees. And we can use law of sines because you'll notice we have an angle. So we have angle B and we have little b. So we can set this up, the sine of 105 over 37.5 equals, if we wanted to find c, the sine of 42 over little c. Well, if we fraction bust c in 37.5, so let's see, we have c times the sine of 105 equals 37.5 times the sine of 42. Solve for c divided by the sine of 105. So we go back to our calculator. 37.5 times this, was it the sine of 33? Double check that one. Nope, the sine of 42. Divided by, and what was it? The sine of 105. So we end up with 25.98. So we have C. And our last thing now is we have to find B. So we can set up the law of sines again, and we can use that angle in the side opposite that was given. And we could use C in this case too, because now we know angle C and side C. But let's go sine of 105 over 37.5. And we need to find little a, so it's the sine of 33. So we multiply by 37.5 and a. So now we have a times the sine of 105 equals 37.5 times the sine of 33, divide by the sine of 105. And that's pretty close to this one. So I'm just going to take that and switch this to a 33. And I think whoa. Let's see, make sure that's what we had there. 37.5 times the sine of 3, yep. And we end up with 21.14. So we're done with that one. Now let's take a look at another example here. So if we need to solve this triangle, we have A, B, C. C is 98 degrees. Little b is 14. Little c is 20. And that's all we have. So again, we have to find, everything we need to find is angle A, angle B, angle C, angle C, we know is 98 degrees. And we need to find little a, little b is 14, little c is 20. So here's our side that we know. So we could set this up. We know that the sine of 98 over 20, well, if we have 14 on top, needs to be the sine of b. So we're solving for the sine of b here, so 20 and 14. So we have 14 times the sine of 98 equals 20 times the sine of b. If we divide by 20, we have 14 times, let's try this again. 14 times the sine of 98 divided by 20. Make sure, yep, so we have 0.69. So the sine of b equals 0.6931, and then we're trying to find the angle, so we have to use that inverse. So if we go back here, inverse 0.6931, 43.9. So that's b is 43.9. And then we have three angles again, so 180 minus 43, or two angles I should say out of the three, minus 98. So we know that that other one is 38.1. And now we have to find A. So now we can use law of sines once more. We have the sine of 98 over 20, the sine of 38.1 over little a, multiplied by 20 and a. So a times the sine of 98 equals 20 times the sine of 38.1, divide by 38.1, or excuse me, divide by the sine of 98. And I have this one done already, so we have 12.46. So the next thing we are going to take a look at here, there is one case that is called the ambiguous case, and we're not going to go into too much detail on this, but there is a case where there can sometimes be true triangles, and that's if, let's say this might not work, you know, if this is 33 and let's say we know that this is 10, there's some cases where you could form there's two triangles, so 10 could swing here, or the leg could also swing out here and it could be 10. But we're not going to worry too much about this ambiguous case. All the ones I will give you, there'll only be one solution. So now we're going to talk about a triangle here, area of a triangle. So our area of a triangle, we know, is base times height divided by 2. But sometimes we might not be given, we might not have that base and height. So for example, maybe we're given, oh, I don't know, let's call this A, B, C, C and A, and we don't know our height here. But if we say that this is our base right here, we'll say side base, and we dash in our height, we could use, and we don't know our height isn't given, our height, we could now use trig. We could say the sine of C is equal to h over A. So height equals A times the sine of C. So another formula for area, we could say base, but our height is written A times the sine of C divided by 2. And the way that you'll sometimes see this, you'll notice we have B, side A, and angle C. So it's two sides and included angle. So as long as you know any two sides in the included angle, we can figure this stuff out here. So we have two sides here and the included angle. So our area would be 5.2 times 7.1 times the sine of 42 divided by 2. And I'll leave you to type that into your calculator. And then this one, our area would be 13.7 times 8.2 times the sine of 62.9 divided by 2, because once we have, again, we have two sides and the angle included.